Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Here with John. Uh, Want to give a little introduction for what we're going to be doing here in these videos on kind of a weekly, bi-weekly basis. We're going to be talking about the company, going to talk about the industry. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about John, his background, how he gets into DeFi and all sorts of craziness. Pretty cool background. Definitely going to hear a lot of cool stories. And I invite anyone who has questions, whether it's about the company, the industry, or just anything that's kind of related to blockchain, cryptocurrency, DeFi stuff, please drop it below. We'll definitely do some Q&A videos coming forward and answering some of those questions. But John, first things first, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Well, here, I know we're doing an intro. I like to start out typically like where you went to school, first couple jobs out of school, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I grew up in North Africa and the Middle East. My father was in the Foreign Service. We lived in some hot spots like Libya, Syria, Baghdad. I then I left home at age 9, went off to English boarding school, then went off to, did my high school in the US at Phillips Academy, Andover, and then went to Georgetown University where I majored in international finance.
Okay, interesting. And then walk me through. So now, first couple jobs. That's a crazy, obviously, school path. Hopefully, the career path gets even better.
Yeah, so I ended up getting recruited by BNP Paribas to trade emerging markets, fixed income bonds. Also worked at Bankers Trust in London, doing the same thing, covering Latin America, Eastern Europe, Russia, North Africa, and Middle East. So I was traded sort of yield farming, institutional yield farming of today from a DeFi perspective. So I was managing a $1.4 billion portfolio of emerging market bonds for Bankers Trust at that time. And then I started a fintech company with a friend of mine in the dot-com days. And we were tracking the performance of Wall Street research, providing performance analytical tools to hedge funds like Deutsche Bank Asset Management. We partnered with JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, for their hedge fund clients. Our performance metrics used by Fidelity, retail brokerage. You get those today. Our performance metrics were used by by Wall Street Journal, CNBC, New York Times, covered, because it was the first time that a firm had actually looked at the performance of Wall Street research and provided those performance numbers to retail investors. We even testified before Congress on analyst conflicts of interest, and some of our recommendations were used by FINRA. So FINRA Rule 2711 is something that we had recommended to provide more transparency on Wall Street.
Give me an example. So you say like tracking Wall Street analytics, and performance. Give me an example of one.
In the dot-com days, you had analysts on CNBC or on TV making recommendations on whether to buy or sell stocks, and we actually tracked that performance. So we aggregated all those recommendations, ran it through a performance model, and came out with recommendations. Came out with the rankings of Wall Street firms. So we were ranking the top 20 firms on Wall Street, and then looked at also at independent research firms, very smart quant shops out there that do quantitative analysis, that are providing their research to hedge funds. And so we tracked their performance and compared it to Wall Street, and made that.
Give some insight. I mean, I know back in the early 2000s, what were some of those numbers like? I know there's the famous kind of, especially for crypto, anytime you saw CNN post about Bitcoin, you just made sure you bet the other way, and it always worked out almost. But I'd love to hear kind of what you guys were seeing in those days.
Well, yeah, it was interesting. What we actually did is we compared the performance of their recommendations where there was an underwriting relationship to where there was no underwriting relationship, and there was a huge differential in spread. In fact, a funny anecdote is related to those rankings. We consistently found that Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers performed 19 and 20 out of 20 on those rankings. And at that time, there was actually an article in the New York Post front page talking about how investors got soaked by some of the recommendations that were coming out. A friend of ours who was vice chairman of the NASDAQ at the time came to our office and said he had just had lunch with the CEO of Bear Stearns. And we were excited thinking we were going to get a contract with Bear Stearns, but in fact, we were told that he's going to kill us because he wasn't too happy about the fact that he was always ranked 20 out of 20. So look, it's not our fault. Those are just the results of the performance metrics. We were lucky, 6 months later, Bear Stearns wasn't around, so we didn't have to worry about him taking us down.
Lucky. Well, awesome. So, great kind of tech startup in the .com days. You survived that. Now, walk me through the story. Still with it? What? Give me the next part of the timeline.
Yeah, so we discovered blockchain, this new emerging technology, and we were actually building a peer-to-peer lending platform. We were building on traditional payment rails. ACH takes 1, 2, 3 days for transfers to go through. Takes time, costs money, and realized that this new emerging technology was going to solve a lot of the problems out there in terms of payments. Essentially a new payments rail. It's a rewiring of the financial markets from a payments perspective, a value transfer perspective. So we started by looking to build a decentralized exchange that would basically provide investors with a decentralized way to invest in the tokens at that time in 2017, 2018. It was challenging at the time because we had to build each of those verticals, from the KYC to the wallet technology to the exchange itself, to all the compliance and regulatory requirements around that. And so by the time that we launched in 2019, a lot of the DeFi infrastructure was being built and had been built, and we decided to focus on the problems that we thought would get real world adoption, and that's really providing a banking solution built on DeFi with high savings rates and providing better access to banking solutions if you look at remittance or payment space. So that's sort of a little bit of the evolution of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask why DeFi. You kind of answered that. Obviously looking at kind of banking solutions and in the finance space makes sense with a lot of the background that you just went over. Anything else about kind of why DeFi you wanted to touch on?
Well, I think the past few years, especially in the 2017 period, investors were more focused on the speculative opportunity of investing in tokens that are going to go up in value or down in value. And DeFi is really solving the real world problems of inflation, currency controls, currency devaluation in countries like Argentina, Turkey, Lebanon, and allowing people to transfer value peer to peer without the costs associated with traditional financial payment rails.
Interesting. Well, so I guess now talk to me about the formation of the company and maybe a little bit, obviously you see this technology, go, this could be interesting. We see an opportunity here, and walk me through how you got, the lucky CEO hat.
So we were accepted into a tech accelerator program in Boulder, Colorado. These accelerator programs like Y Combinator, Techstars, Boomtown, and in going through that program, we were approached by a venture capital firm out of Vancouver that wanted to raise capital for us and take us public. We said, wait, we're a startup. We don't need to be going public yet. But we did see it as a great way to raise capital that we needed to build a business and grow the company. So that's how we ended up as a pubco.
Yeah, no, awesome. Now walk me through kind of I guess the day-to-day, week-to-week, as the CEO right now. Walk me through kind of what your week-to-week looks like.
Yeah, so I, as a startup, as a CEO in a startup company, one has to wear a lot of hats, from operations to marketing to business development. I actually spent a lot of time on the product development side. I work very closely with the design team, with the technical team, architecting, designing the interface and the product. So I'm essentially filtering, based on my experience in fintech and emerging markets, the business opportunity into an actual product. And one of the challenges, I think there's been a lot of great infrastructure and products built in this space, but the user experience has not been very good. So, it's not easy for the average person to go in and set up a MetaMask and remember the seed phrase and figure out how to move funds into a protocol and earn yield, or to another protocol to get higher yield. So my focus has really been on designing a very simple user interface, and that's why we're focused on a banking solution. A lot of people, they don't understand DeFi. They hear about it. They hear about the opportunities in terms of yield farming, but they do understand traditional banking. They know how to they have an online banking account, and they understand that. So what we built is essentially a banking solution with checking, savings, and investments, but built on stablecoin DeFi technology as opposed to traditional fiat technology.
Yeah, extremely interesting. We'll do a deep dive into the company and the industry coming forward. Pretty awesome. Obviously, that background's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. Cool little story there. Anything else about yourself you wanted to get in this video?
Maybe I'll save it for the next video.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everyone who's watched so far. If you do have any questions, please drop them below. We'll definitely do some Q&A type stuff like I mentioned. But John, thanks so much for joining. This was a great first video.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great. Appreciate it.